Earl Thompson sat in his usual booth at Norman's Diner, the same spot he'd claimed every Tuesday morning for the past 15 years. At 81, his hands weren't as steady as they used to be, but they still wore the calluses of a man who'd worked hard his entire life. The plaid flannel shirt he wore was pressed neat, the way his late wife Martha used to do it, though now he managed with an iron and memories. The coffee was hot, the way he liked it. The regulars nodded their greetings. Sam, Pete, Howard, and the rest of the morning crowd, all men who'd watched their children grow and their hair thin. They didn't talk much, didn't need to. There was comfort in the familiar faces, in the ritual of eggs and toast, in the morning paper spread across worn Formica, Sarah. The young waitress with kind eyes poured refills without being asked. She knew everyone's order by heart. Her red apron was spotless despite the breakfast rush, her blonde ponytail swaying as she moved between tables with practiced grace. The bell above the door chimed. Earl didn't look up at first. He was reading about the town council meeting, squinting at the small print. But the shift in atmosphere made him glance toward the entrance. A man in his mid-30s strode in. Black t-shirt stretched tight across broad shoulders, confidence rolling off him like cologne. His dark hair was cut short, and his eyes swept the diner with the kind of assessment that made people uncomfortable. He wasn't from around here. That much was clear. The man walked straight to the counter, his boots heavy on the checkered floor. When Sarah approached with her welcoming smile, he didn't return it. Coffee black, and make it quick. His voice carried across the quiet diner. Sarah's smile faltered but held. Of course, sir. Would you like to see a menu? Did I ask for a menu? The regulars exchanged glances. Earl folded his newspaper slowly, watching. There was a tension now, sharp as January wind. Sarah brought the coffee within moments. As she set it down, her hand trembled slightly, and a few drops splashed onto the saucer. The man's face darkened. You call this service? My grandmother could pour better, and she's been dead 10 years. I'm so sorry. Let me forget it. He grabbed the cup and turned, surveying the diner with barely concealed contempt. His gaze landed on the booth where Earl's friends sat. For older men, in their 70s and 80s, veterans all, though you wouldn't know it unless you asked. The stranger walked over to their table and stopped. You old-timers need to learn some respect. Sitting around taking up space, probably haven't contributed anything useful in decades. Howard, 76, with a hearing aid and a purple heart he never mentioned, looked up in confusion. Excuse me, son. You heard me? This booth? I want it. So move along to the nursing home where you belong. Sam started to stand, his weathered face flushing, but Howard put a hand on his arm. They'd seen worse than bullies in their time. Much worse. They began to gather their things with quiet dignity. But the stranger wasn't finished. As Earl's friends stood to leave, the man's eyes landed on Earl himself, still sitting in his booth 10 feet away. What are you staring at, old man? Earl met his gaze steadily. Just wondering what makes a man talk to his elders that way. Your mother would be ashamed. The words hung in the air for 3 heartbeats. Then the stranger crossed the distance in 4 strides. His hand shot out, connecting with Earl's face in a sharp, vicious slap that echoed through the diner like a gunshot. Earl's head snapped to the side. His glasses clattered to the table. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Sarah gasped, her hand over her mouth. The regular stood frozen in shock. The stranger smiled, a cold, ugly thing. That's what happens when you don't know your place. Earl's cheek burned red, already beginning to swell. But he didn't cry out. He simply raised his hand to his face, touching it gently, and looked at the man with something close to pity. Son, you just made a terrible mistake. Yeah? And what are you going to do about it, Grandpa? The bell above the door chimed again. This time, everyone looked. A man in his 40s stood in the doorway, still and solid as oak. His black t-shirt and jeans were simple, but the look on his face was anything but. Behind him, visible through the glass door, were motorcycles. Lots of them. And men in leather vests, with patches that commanded respect and caution in equal measure. Dad. The man's voice was quiet, controlled, but underneath it ran something dangerous. His eyes locked onto Earl's reddening cheek, then slowly, deliberately, traveled to the stranger. The stranger's smirk faded. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm his son." Steps into the diner. "Danny Thompson. And judging by my father's face, you and I need to have a conversation." The stranger tried to rally his bravado. "Look, buddy, this doesn't concern you." The old man got mouthy, and I taught him some manners. Danny's jaw tightened. He turned to the door and nodded once. The door opened again, and they came in. Big men, hard men, men who'd lived rough lives and wore the evidence in scars and ink. They didn't say a word. They simply filled the diner, a wall of leather and purpose. Surrounding the stranger like wolves who'd found something that didn't belong, a massive man with a long beard and arms covered in tattoos stepped forward. "Danny, this the one?" Danny nodded. His voice was ice. "This is the man who put his hands on my father." The stranger's confidence crumbled. His eyes darted from face to face, finding no sympathy, no escape route. "Look, I didn't know he was your dad. It was just a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Danny moved closer, and the stranger backed up until he hit the counter. "You slapped an 81-year-old veteran. A man who served his country when you were nothing but a possibility in your father's mind. A man who never raised his voice or his hand in anger to anyone who didn't deserve it." I said, "I'm sorry." "No, you didn't. Said it was a misunderstanding. There's a difference." Sarah stood to the side, coffee pot forgotten in her hands. The regulars watched in silence. Earl remained in his booth, one hand still pressed to his cheek. The bearded man spoke, his voice like gravel. "We don't abide this kind of behavior. You disrespected not just this man, but everything he represents. Every morning, he probably wakes up with pain you couldn't imagine, from injuries earned protecting people like you." "I'll leave. I'll just go, please." Danny shook his head slowly. "Not yet. First, you're going to apologize. A real apology. To my father, to his friends, and to Sarah for being rude when all she did was try to serve you." The stranger's voice shook. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I was having a bad day and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it. Tell them." "Not me." The stranger turned to Earl. Tears were forming in his eyes now, fear and shame mixing together. "Sir, I'm so sorry. What I did was wrong. Completely wrong. You didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that." Earl studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Apology accepted. Now go home and think about the man you want to be." The stranger turned to Sarah. "Miss, I'm sorry for being rude." "Thank you for trying to help me." Sarah nodded, not quite trusting her voice. The stranger looked at Danny. "Can I go now?" "One more thing." Donnie pulled out his wallet and handed him a card. "This is the VA center downtown. My dad volunteers there twice a week, helping other veterans. You're going to volunteer there too. 10 hours. You're going to hear stories from men and women who sacrifice more than you'll ever know. Maybe you'll learn something." The stranger took the card with trembling hands. "I promise. If I hear you've treated anyone else like this, anywhere ever again, we'll have another conversation. One that won't end with you walking out on your own feet. Understood?" "Yes, sir." Danny stepped aside. The wall of leather parted. The stranger walked out, his swagger gone, replaced by a shuffle of genuine shame. When the door closed, Danny went to his father. He knelt beside the booth, his tough exterior cracking. "Dad, are you okay? Do we need to take you to the hospital?" Earl smiled, wincing slightly. "I'm fine, son. Takes more than that to rattle an old soldier. Though I appreciate you boys showing up when you did. I was coming to meet you for breakfast like we planned. Saw the whole thing through the window." Danny's voice roughened with emotion. "When I saw him hit you, I just saw red." Earl placed his weathered hand on his son's shoulder. "I know you did, but you handled it right. Gave him a chance to make it right. That's what matters." The bearded man approached, his heavy boots somehow gentle on the floor. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Jack. Danny's told us a lot about you over the years. It's an honor to finally meet you, though I wish it was under better circumstances." Earl extended his hand, and Jack shook it carefully. "The honor's mine. Thank you for looking out for my boy all these years. He looks out for us too. Good men stick together." Sarah appeared with ice wrapped in a clean towel. "For your cheek, Mr. Thompson. On the house." "Thank you, dear." Earl pressed it to his face. "And thank you for being brave. I saw how scared you were, but you kept your kindness. That takes real courage." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know what to do. I've never seen anyone act like that. You did just fine." Danny stood and addressed the diner. "Breakfast is on me today. For everyone. And Sarah, whatever your usual tips are, multiply them by 5. The regulars, who'd been silent throughout, finally found their voices. They came over one by one to check on Earl, these men who'd fought in wars, raised families, buried spouses, and kept going through it all. They understood what it meant to stand together. Howard gripped Earl's shoulder. "Scared us there for a minute, buddy? Scared myself a bit too, but I'm okay." The quietest of the group spoke up. "Your boy did good, Earl. Real good. Taught that punk a lesson without becoming like him." Earl looked at Danny with obvious pride. He learned from the best. His mother always said violence should be the last resort, and mercy should be the first. Jack and the other riders stayed for breakfast. They filled the diner with unexpected warmth. These rough-looking men with soft hearts. They told stories, laughed with the regulars, and treated Sarah with such courtesy that she stopped being nervous around them. As plates of eggs and bacon arrived, Danny sat across from his father. "Dad, I want you to stop coming here alone, at least for a while. Son, I can't live in fear. This is my place, my routine. Martha and I used to come here every week. I'm not giving that up because of one bad apple. Then let me come with you, please, for my peace of mind." Earl considered this. Tuesdays and Saturdays? Tuesdays and Saturdays. He shook on it, and Earl smiled despite the throbbing in his cheek. "Your mother would have liked these friends of yours. They've got good hearts under all that leather. They do. And they'll spread the word. This diner, these people, they're protected now. Nobody will try anything like this again." Through the window, the morning sun climbed higher. The diner returned to its familiar rhythm, but something had changed. There was a new understanding, renewed appreciation for the quiet dignity of good people living good lives. Sarah refilled coffee cups with hands that no longer shook. The regulars returned to their newspapers and crosswords. Jack showed Howard pictures of his grandchildren on his phone. The two men, separated by decades and life experiences, found common ground in the universal language of family. Earl pressed the ice to his cheek and felt the pain beginning to ease. He'd lived through war, through loss, through the slow dimming of his generation. But he'd also lived to see his son become a good man, to see strangers become protectors, to witness how quickly a community could rally around one of its own. Sometimes, he reflected, the world showed you its ugliness. But more often, if you paid attention, it showed you its grace. By noon, the story would spread through town. By evening, it would become legend, details embellished with each telling. But here, in this moment, it was simply a reminder that respect matters, that kindness counts, and that standing up for what's right never goes out of style, Earl. Thompson finished his breakfast surrounded by friends old and new. His cheek would heal. The memory would fade. But the lesson would remain, passed down in stories around dinner tables and late-night conversations. A reminder that sometimes justice comes roaring up on motorcycles, and sometimes it speaks in a quiet voice that demands to be heard. The bell above the door chimed as customers came and went. Norman's Diner continued its day, a little wiser, a little stronger, a little more aware that ordinary places can become extraordinary when good people decide they've had enough of disrespect. And in booth 3, Earl Thompson smiled, because in the end, he was exactly where he belonged. Surrounded by love, protected by loyalty, and proven right in his belief that this world still had more good in it than bad. You just had to know where to look. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness and respect still matter in this world. Subscribe for more stories that celebrate the everyday heroes among us. and leave a comment telling us about a time when someone stood up for what was right. Your stories inspire others to be brave, to be kind, and to never stop believing in the goodness of people.